Wait, let people.
Are we on live now?
We sure are.
We are, yep.
Okay.
Just wait for
Hey.
people to join us as the people come in. Good afternoon, everybody. We'll wait here just a minute. Thanks for sticking with us there. We had a small technical difficulty in getting everything pulled together or set up this morning, so appreciate your patience. And it looks like we've got quite a few people still joining. So I do want to thank you so much for joining us today on our June monthly luncheon. Hopefully soon we'll be able to actually do this in person. We are at the Chamber working hard to figure out how we can move forward with having some in-person events and do that safely and abide by all of the guidelines put forth by the state and county and CDC. So we are looking forward to starting that up somewhat in July. But today we are very excited to hear from Chairman Eilert. Before we turn that over to Chairman Eilert, I do want to just give you a few updates on some of our upcoming events that for the next coming weeks with our in-person AM Connects. And our July meeting will be a cookout, and we'll give you all the details of that at the end of the presentation. And I do want to just thank all of our sponsors for this year, our Investor Guild sponsors that are there on the screen before you. We thank you so much for your commitment to the Shawnee Chamber and throughout this year, and especially throughout this last couple of months. It's really been important, and so many of you have stepped up and helped us in a multitude of ways. So thank you to all of you out there that have been such a generous and great supporter of the Chamber of Commerce. Today, our monthly lunch is sponsored by John Wills State Farm Agency, and I will turn it over to John to talk about State Farm and to introduce Chairman Eilert.
Thank you, Ann. I'd like to thank the Shawnee Chamber for allowing me to be today's sponsor. As a State Farm agent in Shawnee, I'm proud to let you know that $2.2 billion in dividends are being returned to our policyholders as we speak today. As of the 7 State Farm agents in Shawnee, that breaks down to almost $1 million returning to our people right here in Shawnee. In addition to the good news that we plan on with the dividends, we plan on taking an 11% reduction in August for our auto rates. If you're with State Farm, I would ask that you would reach out to your State Farm agent for more details. Now I'd like to introduce our speaker. I'd like to thank Chairman Ed Eilert for taking the time to be with us today. For those that don't know Chairman Eilert, he had served as Johnson County Board of Commissioners since 2007, took over the chairmanship in 2011. Before that, he served as mayor of Overland Park for 24 years. In total, 41 years of public service. In his part-time, he's also been a financial consultant, also a teacher in the Shawnee Mission School District. So with that, Ed, I can't thank you enough for your public service, and we're going to turn it over to you. Thank you.
Well, John, thank you very much. And thank you also for inviting me to join in this chamber activity today. And a special welcome to all of the chamber members who are on. I thought today I would just briefly review some activities in the county, a very brief overview of COVID activities, and some activities in our criminal justice system, also a budget, and a very, very brief update on some of the major capital improvement projects that we have going on. Let me start by saying that at this point in time, all businesses in Johnson County are welcome to be open. That decision was made back on May 28th. We are currently operating under the 3rd phase of the Ad Astra plan, which on the 22nd of June, that also will end. Those guidelines and guidances contained in the Ad Astra plan, we strongly encourage folks to continue to observe the social distancing and those kind of activities that are going to be important going forward. So all of our activities, whether they're youth activities, sports, businesses, restaurants, large event spaces, are welcome to open. But we would strongly encourage everyone to continue to practice the policies that we've been working under for the last several weeks or several months. Specifically, for Johnson County, this all started back the 1st of March when we had our first positive case. And within a week, I issued an emergency order. You might be interested in knowing that order is only good for 7 days unless the commission extends it, which they did. And that was followed by the stay-at-home order by the medical officer of the Public Health Department. I want to give a shout out to our school superintendents. When spring break started, we met with them. They were concerned about students, staff, parents coming back from spring break and carrying on community transmission in the schools. And their request was, could they close the schools for 2 weeks to give that incubation period an opportunity to pass. And within a couple of days, I think we all know the governor issued closed the schools at least until the end of April. And that was the first positive step that was taken by our school superintendents, and I commend them. I think we would be in a much different situation today if that kind of action had not been taken. So we are at this point where everything is beginning to open up, and that's good. We want our economy to get back on track, economic opportunities presented for everyone, and people going back to work. As John mentioned, my time in public service has been significantly dedicated to working with individuals and groups such as the Shawnee Chamber to create business opportunities, provide jobs and economic opportunities for all. And the actions that we had to take in the past several weeks have been the most difficult decisions that I've had to make, and I think that all of us on the commission have made. The objective going forward, and this is why we emphasize continue to practice the social distancing, masking, other washing hands, personal hygiene, so that our place at this point in time, that we don't see the kind of spikes we're seeing around the country, that our medical facilities continue to be very, very capable to handle those who are ill, and that we don't have to take a step backward. So please keep that in mind. Another activity that's coming up, and I think all of you are aware that the CARES Act by federal government, every city, every county over 500,000 in population received federal funds based upon, I think, $194 per capita in those counties. As a result, there were 2 counties in Kansas that qualified, Johnson County and Sedgwick County. The amount of funds that we received was $116 million. We have not expended any of those monies yet. This Thursday, we'll have a study session to outline the process that we will follow. The preliminary discussion sets out this kind of process. Step 1, we will be working with our cities and the county to identify those COVID-related expenditures that would qualify to receive funds from the CARES Act. And so we will be setting up that process. I don't anticipate that we will just be handing out money because there will be audits, the federal government tells us, and money that has been misappropriated will be required to be returned. So we want to be diligent in our process so that we don't put taxpayers at risk in the future for making donations, or making loans or making grants that would have to be subsequently returned. In Johnson County and in local government, the cities will be our first focus. We cannot use this money to supplement 2020 budgets. For instance, if our sales tax receipts have gone down, we can't use this CARES money to supplement that shortfall. What we can use the money for is all COVID-related activities. And as you can imagine, our public health department has been very, very active in the past several months. Testing supplies are very expensive in most cases. Personal protective equipment for our first responders, healthcare providers, all of those kind of expenses qualify for reimbursement under the CARES Act. At this point in time, our estimate is that somewhere around $30 million worth of reimbursements to the county. Don't have a number for the cities, but we also are able to provide hazard pay to local government officials. So first responders of various kinds, that would qualify also. So we will, the next several weeks, we'll spend time identifying from the cities exactly what their request is going to be and what the county's request. The second step, there's a broad category called community investment. And we will set up a process, we don't have one in place yet, which will look at, for instance, businesses, hospitals, and other business entities and nonprofits who might qualify for some of these funds. None of that will happen overnight. And so I just encourage you to stay tuned. And again, step one will be working with the cities and the counties, and then step two will be reaching out to the larger community. The county's responsibility in this will continue. Our testing materials come from 4 sources: Kansas Department of Health and Environment, and usually there's no expense for the testing or the lab work. KU Health Services, there's no cost for the testing, but there is a cost for the lab work. Quest Diagnostics and Viacor are the 2 private providers of testing equipment and lab sources. I think Quest, our cost is about $69 per test, and Viacor is just a little over $70 per test. So we have tested about 29,000 of our residents, and our objective is 50,000 plus. And this testing, depending on what happens this fall, we could be testing throughout the balance of the year. So those kind of expenses are not concluded yet at this point. Criminal justice. With the activity that occurred, and tragically, in Minneapolis with Mr. Floyd, we have received several information requests about what the county is doing or what the county has done in regards to our criminal justice system. And I would just, 2 or 3 things. Back in 2008, the county established what we call a Criminal Justice Advisory Council. This is a group of about 30 plus individuals, community members, district court, corrections, sheriff's office, and police departments, community members who have been working on criminal justice issues in Johnson County. And we have been focusing on the mental health aspect of criminal justice. I think the sheriff would tell you that there's a very, very large number of individuals in jail who are there because of mental health issues or addiction issues. And so we have set up a process for addressing that. And whenever anybody is booked into the jail system, there is data that's collected and that's passed on to our mental health agency for evaluation. and for action on their part. Back in 2011, the National Association of Counties also emphasized this approach to criminal justice, and we joined right away. It's called a Stepping Up, and our participation in what our Criminal Justice Advisory Council was doing earned us the title of an Innovator County. There are 7 counties across the country who have followed similar practices as Johnson County, and we've been named Innovator Counties, and our personnel in corrections and criminal justice make presentations to other counties and at national events as to what we're doing. So very, very proud of those individuals who have served on that Criminal Justice Advisory Council and have brought us to this point of excellence. We also have a similar group for juvenile justice. So that's just a very a top-level sketch of what we're doing in our criminal justice system. Another program that's been set up through the Mental Health Department is called Crisis Intervention Training. And we have something in excess of 800 police officers who have spent 40 hours of training in dealing with crisis situations that they're called to. And so that also has been very effective and helpful. Back in 2011, we also started our co-responder program, where there is a mental health clinician available to respond with our police officers if there is a mental health situation involved in that response. I think we have 10 co-responders now serving 12 different police districts, and we probably will have more requests because based upon information from our police departments, it has been very, very effective and very, very helpful. We also had a pilot program started last fall in one of our school districts where a mental health clinician worked with the school resource officer. And we were getting very, very positive results on that program, and then all the schools got closed down. So we'll continue to evaluate that program. So we have been very, very active in modifying and putting in place positive actions that are followed and used by not only the Sheriff's Department, but also our city's police departments. And I would encourage you this: if you want more information in regards to the activities of our Sheriff's Office, go to the Johnson County Sheriff website. There's a statement there from Sheriff Cal Hayden. He and I and the District Attorney had issued a previous statement back on June 1. The Sheriff has fortified that statement, and there's a lot of information about use of force and other programs that the Sheriff's Department has in place to emphasize equal justice for all. So again, I would encourage you to use that if you would like additional information. COVID has had a significant impact on the county budget. Back in April, when we began reviewing the impact and revenue sources, we were looking at a shortfall of about $25 million just for 2020. As we continue to evaluate revenue sources, sales taxes are up, property taxes came in on time, and we're now looking at an adjustment of somewhere around $15 million for the 2020 budget. And in making those kind of adjustments, we focus on personnel and freezing new hires and freezing vacancies. We also had some furloughs, and regretfully, we had to do that. But those are the primary steps that we're taking in order to help us close that 2020 gap. In 2021, it looks like we will be in the neighborhood of $8 to $10 million shortfall from our projected budget. 2021 budget has not been completed yet. The county manager is just in the process of completing her budget recommendation. But I can give you the 2 or 3 areas where the biggest expenditures are. As you might expect, the general fund services, the general services budget, which provides for all levels of county services, is about $413 million. Johnson County Wastewater, which does not receive any tax dollars, it's utility-based, and so the customers pay fees. That's about $276 million. Another large budget item is our reserve account, which is about $322 million. Now, the reason that reserve account is so large is primarily because of Johnson County Wastewater. We are in the process of rebuilding the Tomahawk Creek wastewater plant. And in doing so, we had to shut off flow to that plant. It's now going to Kansas City, Missouri for treatment. Whereas previously, for decades, Kansas City, Missouri had been treating about half of that flow. And it was about $16 or $17 million a year cost. And that was one of the drivers that we used to justify rebuilding the plant. So now they're treating the entire flow. That cost is about $32 to $33 million a year. So we built up that wastewater reserve knowing that we were going to have that higher cost. So that reserve will be spent down paying for that increased cost to Kansas City, Missouri. So we didn't have to have a big increase in rates to cover that. Another large item, $60 million in that budget, is transfers within departments. You get grants from the U.S. government, federal government, state government, and other sources. That has to be accounted for, and then when you transfer it to various departments for their use, some call it a double accounting, probably more easily understood with transfers, and that in and of itself is about $60 million. And we also receive grant funding, which is about $50 million. So that just kind of gives you a bird's eye view. Libraries and parks have their own separate budget, and both of those departments, their budgets are about $40 million each. During the month of July, the commission will be working on the recommendations from the county manager. Public hearing will be held. Those budget discussions will be broadcast. So if you're interested why, most of the month of July will be spent on that budget work. I mentioned Tomahawk Creek wastewater plant. I think completion of that facility is expected sometime in 2022, maybe 2023. The other big item was the new courthouse, which is progressing on budget, on schedule. We again anticipate opening immediately after the first of the year of 2021. And we're looking forward to being able to have an open house and inviting the public in to see that new facility. I would say this about the current district courts. Our district courts began opening up again, I think June 15th, just a couple of days ago. They're not at full facility capacity yet. They've been able to do some court activities virtually, but not very many. So there's a big backlog of cases. And I should mention, one reason we were able to close that $15 million budget gap for 2020 is that our average daily population in the jail has dropped from about 850 a day to about 550 a day. That reduced the need for overtime, and so that was a big help also. Jury trials, and talking with the administrative judge, when jury trials will begin is really undetermined. I think it's going to be a big challenge to get people to come in and perhaps sit for several days in a confined jury space. But the courts are reopening on a scheduled basis. Libraries have reopened this week, again, not at full capacity. And our parks and trails have always been open, but other park activities are now open. Medical examiner's office. That project is very near completion. I think 1st of July, they'll be actively doing their work. We probably won't have any kind of grand opening until sometime in August or maybe even later, when hopefully it's safer in order to bring people together. And lastly, I would simply note this. I think it's of interest in Shawnee, many of the microbreweries. On this November general election ballot, there will be a question to remove the 30% food requirement in order to serve alcohol. And this was adopted unanimously by the Board of County Commissioners. And I'm sure there will be much more information out. But this is an opportunity to remove that 30% food requirement so the microbreweries, for instance, can be much more active. This requirement has been removed in the past by several counties in Kansas. Sedgwick County removed that requirement years ago. And I don't really have an answer why Johnson County continued it for as long as we have, but hopefully that requirement will be adjusted. And with that, I'll stop. Ann, if there's questions, I'll be glad to try to answer them.
Absolutely. First, I just want to thank you personally. I mean, through all of this, you have just been, you know, such a terrific leader for our county. I know that you have worked hard, as have all the commissioners, to balance the needs of our public health concerns along with our businesses and the economy. You know, you reached out to all of us, chamber people individually. The executives brought us in to be a part of that conversation to make sure that we were, that the businesses were also represented in this conversation. And so I really appreciate your leadership through all of this. And I know it's so challenging because the information shifting all of the time, and we're constantly having to rethink the strategy, but really appreciate it and appreciate your continued concern about the businesses in Shawnee and of course in all of Johnson County. So thank you very much. Appreciate
Well,
that.
thank you for saying that, but let me add, our county staff has been extraordinary in this process, working with our public health officials, and you know, for a period of several weeks, staff's activity was almost strictly focused on how we were going to handle the COVID epidemic. And so from County Manager Penny Postoke Ferguson, other county management, top staff, public health folks, everybody, they deserve the credit because they work terribly hard.
Yeah. You know, we often get to work with the county staff in other capacities as well, and we are very fortunate as a whole community to have such excellent staff level leadership as well. So professional and smart, and they do a great job. I see a note here from, now the questions are pouring in. First, again, thank you to the county, to the Parks Department for the support of the funds for the improvements at Mid-America Sports Complex. We see that as a true opportunity for Shawnee and for all of the county. And you know, Kevin Fern here had a note on there as well. So just wanted to acknowledge that and looking forward to those improvements continually being made out there and what that means for all of us. Let me see, you know, a couple other notes here. Heidi Thummel also just wanted to express her thanks for including, you know, the chamber rep on the COVID task force and making sure that we were supportive statements making supportive statements during the commission meetings as to the importance of the chambers and the wonderful job that they do in representing so many businesses. So that was from Heidi Thummel. The next question we have is, what is the process of working with the state and also local municipalities in Johnson County during the COVID response? I think you touched on this a little bit, but how did Johnson County work and communicate with each?
How did we work with the cities? Well, you know, I think the county manager has a weekly conference call with the city managers. And so that's where a lot of the effort is expended in making sure that we continue through that process, being aware of what's going on in the cities and any support that we can provide. I also attend the monthly Council of Mayors meetings, which are all done electronically. And so it allows me to also get feedback from the mayors as to what's going on within their cities and what their particular needs are. So I think the cities, like the county, some of their large expenses have to do with personal protective equipment and also first responders. I think we'll be reviewing hazard pay for all of those first responders. So, but we continue on a weekly or monthly basis, various activities. We stay in touch with our cities, try to.
Kevin Tubasing has asked, has the county noticed any uptick in county courts processing eviction notices, especially in lower rent areas or homelessness?
That I cannot respond to. I would have to ask the administrative judge at district court or District Attorney Steve Howe, could probably more directly answer that question.
Okay.
I'm sorry. I don't
okay.
have an answer.
That's okay. The next question is from Trent Dansel. What is your sense about federal funds being made available to state and local governments, specifically to address revenue shortfalls brought about by the forced closure of the economy, either through additional stimulus or modifying the COVID-specific reimbursement regulations on CARES funds?
Well, I mentioned this earlier. For local governments, cities and counties, again, the $15 million shortfall that we anticipate in our 2020 budget cannot be reimbursed from that CARES Act. And that's for the county and that's for the city. For private sector businesses, that's not necessarily a requirement. And so there is that differential between local governments and businesses. I don't know why local governments would put in that position. We should be treated the same way as other business entities. As far as the larger question, I'll go back to 2008. The Great Recession. I'll use that term. If it had not been for action of the Federal Reserve, in my judgment, that situation would have been much, much worse. In this instance, the Congress, the federal government, and the Federal Reserve have been much, much more aggressive in providing all kinds of stimulus dollars, across the country and to broad groups of businesses and individuals through unemployment. Without that, I think our economy would be much, much worse. Shortfalls would be much greater than what they are now. So if the question is, those were helpful and probably had to be done. What the future holds, I don't know. I spent 40 years in the investment business, and we always watched what the deficit was. That was a big issue. But I think in circumstances like this, you need to act and then take steps in the future to bring us back to a more normal situation. I don't know whether that answers the question, but hopefully it does.
Yeah. If there's follow-up from any of the attendees, just please go ahead and put that in the chat or the Q&A function. The next question is, so does the county have a rainy day fund to help with situations like this, or do we spend up to what we have? And the follow-up to that is, does all this mean higher taxes for our citizens?
I'm sorry, what was the last part?
Does all of this mean higher taxes?
No, there is no, well, okay, let me back up. The reserve that we have for our general fund is at about 28 or 29% of our $413 million general fund. And our objective there is to have 20 to 30% of our reserves for our general fund. That helps us maintain our bond rating, etc. We have not tapped into any of those reserves to close that $15 million gap, or we don't anticipate tapping into those reserves for 2021 unless something unforeseen happens. So rather than use those reserves, they are rainy day funds. If something happens more drastic in 2021, we might have to dip into them, but we try to maintain them at that level. Versus back in 2008, 2009, during the recession, we did use reserve funds, but we started out at about 41%, and we went down to about 27, 26% of our general fund budget before the economy began to recover. And during that recession, when real estate values went down, we did not raise our mill levy purposely. And now I don't anticipate that the mill levy will go up. Whether or not we're able to reduce it with the shortfalls we have is yet to be determined. But I do not see the mill levy going up now. If there's somebody out there who can tell me what's going to happen to residential values, I am told that the residential market is a lot stronger than one would think, just with everything that's been going on. But that's just anecdotal.
We've heard similar anecdotal information too from some of our realtors. So the next question is, as you look back over the last 60 days and all the changes that the county made in its day-to-day operations, is there any lasting takeaways of ways the county can serve the residents better in the future? As an example, the new option of dropping off new motor vehicle registrations and having the county process those remotely versus having to go in person to the DMV to register an auto. So has there been any...
Yeah, that's a good question. And we've been trying to make positive changes in our DMV operation, for several years. And some of those changes have been restricted by the state. But I think it shows that there are opportunities that something like we've been going through forces you to make different decisions. Another question is, our admin building, our total workforce is not yet back. And I think that's the way it is in many businesses. And so the question is, how much of this work can be done without coming into the office or without needing office space? So I think there's some lasting changes that are going to be with us for a while. But I think it did push us to the point of where we had to look at alternative ways of conducting our business. And I think that's been good.
I would agree. Absolutely. We're seeing that in our organization as well. And finally, Eric on our ADC team is asking about, we're working on the expansion of developments in western portion of Shawnee. Is there any way to keep wastewater moving forward and handling the waste loads in this area? We still have a lot of expanding to do in the western part of the county.
Right. No, there have been some challenges I think that we've been able to deal with, at least in one or two cases, and I think those challenges will continue, but we have continued to move forward in providing wastewater services, and I would anticipate that will continue. That's a priority for our wastewater system. So if there's particular difficulties, I think we're committed to looking for ways that we can surmount those difficulties.
That is actually all of the questions that we have. And you answered a couple of mine that I had during your presentation regarding some of the project status. Of course, we're in constant conversation with our new breweries, and we have a new cocktail lounge opening, I think maybe even next week. So that issue, that ballot issue in November will be important as we work to continually revive our downtown in Shawnee and really all across the county. So we're excited to see that's on the ballot as well. I appreciate your time so much. I know you're very, very busy. Your commitment to making Johnson County truly one of the best places to live in the country and all that you do for all of us. So appreciate your time very much. And I am looking forward to hopefully seeing you soon in person.
Well, you're right. Well, thank you very much for the invitation. Thank you very much. Keep up the good work.
All right. Thank you so much. All right. So just a few remarks before we head into our afternoons here. Just a reminder, we do have a couple of upcoming events that will be in person in the AM Connects July 1st and 15th at Lake Quivira. So a beautiful place to start your morning with a cup of coffee, hopefully out on the patio there. Look forward to seeing you all there. And then we will be hosting our first ever, and maybe part of a new tradition, Shawnee Chamber Cookout. We thought this would be a great way to kind of dip our toe into getting everybody back in as well. This will be outdoors at Shawnee Town, 1929, of course, weather permitting. But we look forward to you all coming, and hopefully come, and it'll be a great day. Bring your, or wear your casual shorts and t-shirts if you can, and join us just to connect again in person. We also have multiple Zoom meetings for our candidates for the primaries coming up, and we will be getting information out for you to you regarding that. That will be mostly throughout the month of July. So stay tuned for more information from our Government Affairs Division on those candidate forums. And then finally, I just want to thank our sponsor today, John Wills. Appreciate you sponsoring this today, and thank you for all that you do continually for the Chamber, serving on our board and as our treasurer this year. So with that, unless there's any other questions that anybody has out there in the chat function, I hope you all have a wonderful afternoon, and hope to see you all soon. Bye-bye.